In this video, I'm going to show you a few ways you can texture our blank pattern plates and make your own rolling mill plates for texturing your metal. Make sure when doing any of these processes that you're wearing safety glasses. The first method that I'm going to use to texture this pattern plate is by using a steel ball burr. I have a large size here. You could use any size you like. Just know that you're gonna probably go through a couple of burrs, possibly destroy them, because you are cutting steel with them and you're cutting over, a large surface area. These are 7 by 2 inch pattern plates, and it's gonna take you a significant amount of time to texture this whole plate. So just make sure that you're using lubrication, and you'll definitely want to practice your burr control. That's not something that I've spent a lot of time developing, so you can see here I've slipped a couple of times. Thankfully, I can just sort of grind back over those areas, but this will take some hand control that you might not have developed. One way to help yourself avoid slipping is to make sure you have multiple points of contact. So if you have a finger on the shaft of the burr and that same finger is supported on your metal, that will help keep you from slipping as you grind. So here I'm just sort of overlapping, carving out small depressions in this steel, and it's taking me a while. You could use different sizes of ball burrs. You could use different shaped burrs. Just go ahead and experiment and have fun with it. But remember that when you roll this, your metal is going to be the opposite of what you're carving. So in my metal, it's not going to look like I have small depressions. I'm going to have small bumps because my metal is filling these depressions in my pattern plate. So you can see I'm just sort of carving these little craters, but it'll take a while to do a large area like this pattern plate. But just remember to use lubrication and set aside some time for making this. It's a lot of work initially, but remember you can use this plate over and over again for years. So it's definitely worth taking the time to make yourself a tool. Okay, I'm gonna move on from that texture and try another texturing method. So here I'm using a Damascus separating disc. These can be purchased at most jewelry supply places. They're also known as cutoff wheels. And I actually have 2 stacked on top of each other in this mandrel just because when there's only one, they tend to break pretty easily. And I'm just using this to carve some kind of linear texture in the top end of this pattern plate. So I'm just kind of going over, cutting to different depths, trying to give myself kind of a striped sort of line pattern, but one that's like rough and not perfect. So you can see I've gone through the entire disc, cutting just this end of the pattern plate, but I've got some nice funky linear texture in there. All right, for my next method of texturing, I'm gonna use this really large, gnarly file. I have no idea what this is for. It's gotta be for like horse hooves or something, it's huge. But I'm gonna use it to just put some fairly deep scratches in this steel pattern plate in kind of an all over kind of scribble pattern. And I think that'll make a pretty texture on my metal. So you can see here, I've got all these scratches from the file just in the surface, going all different directions. And now I'm going to try another texturing method, which is stamping. So I have a stamp here and a heavy brass hammer, and I'm just going to go ahead and stamp a couple of designs on my steel pattern plate here. Totally missed my stamp, just whacked my metal, that's great. Try that again. Here we go. So just kind of doing some triangle, repeated triangle, or I guess these are more like V's. Giving myself kind of a funky mountain range pattern or something here. Remember, the marks you're making on this don't have to be very deep. If you can roll lace and feathers through the rolling mill and get a pattern, your pattern plate does not need to be deep. And this last texturing method I'm going to do is just hammering directly onto this plate. So I'm using a cross peen hammer with a linear face, and I'm just going to kind of put some dents, some linear dents in my pattern plate here, and those will transfer to my metal when I texture. Okay, so here I have 5 different textures, all done different ways, and we'll go ahead and anneal some copper and roll it and see what it looks like. So I've got an annealed piece of 18 gauge copper here, and I'm going to go ahead and put it in my rolling mill with my plate and see what I get. So what you're going to do is you're going to open the rolling mill, insert your metal sandwich, and then close the mill down until it's tight. Take note of where the handle is, open it up 1 full turn, pull your metal out, and then close it back down to where it was, and then close it down another 1/4 to 1/2 turn. That's a good starting point. I'm sort of closing it a little bit at a time here and then feeling, like rolling it a tiny bit and feeling how much pressure is there. I want to put muscle into rolling this, but I don't want to have to use my body weight. So that's kind of how I can tell if I have enough pressure on my metal. So let's see what it looks like. See if I picked up those textures. And you can see here, I picked up all of those marks. There's my little bumps. There's my file scratches. There's my cross peen hammer marks and my weird stamping. And my separating disc linear pattern, and that's it. That's a couple ways you can use to texture your blank plates.